Alrighty, attention in the pits. All racers, report to the staging lanes. The show is about to start.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Tonight we're going to go over selecting a carburetor, the proper carburetor for your engine combo. And it could be for not only just for your engine, but for what the car's used for, too. If it's a street car, if it's a drag car, circle track, whatever, So hopefully we'll generate some questions from you guys to determine what you guys are looking for whenever you want to purchase a carburetor. The reason I want to talk about this is two reasons. One, I've got a customer right now that's we'll call him a newbie. I don't want to call him an amateur, but a newbie that it's his first build, and he doesn't really know what to choose or why to choose a carburetor, say a Holley or a Quadrajet or whatever for his application. And so, he's got a lot of questions, which is understandable. And it seems like that's whenever I get somebody that hasn't done it before, even people that have done it before, honestly, they don't really know what to do for carburetor size. So, like his truck, whenever we had the 400, well, it always had a 400 in it. Yep. But when I put the 400 in, I put a Q-Jet on it. And the reason I did that was I was looking for fuel economy out of that thing. It was a Chevy 84 Chevy C10 half-ton pickup, and we used it for vacation. We go on trips to Myrtle Beach, and I pulled a pop-up with it, and I pulled my race car to the racetrack with it. So it had a 305 Chevy in it with a Quadrajet, and that thing was a turd. Your foot was in that thing, literally. You could hear the four barrels all the time with the trailer on the back. And so my fuel economy with that thing was only like 6 or 7 miles a gallon pulling a trailer. And when I put the Pontiac 400 in it, because I probably tripled the torque of the 305 engine, I ended up getting somewhere around 14, 15 miles a gallon with a trailer on the back, which is a substantial gain in fuel economy. And without the trailer, it would get like 17, 18. But in that application, I used a Quadrajet, and it was they rate them at 750 CFM. And a lot of people are kind of confused about Quadrajets. They think that there's multiple different CFMs. There is, but they're not. So what I mean by that is there's only two CFMs in a Quadrajet. There's a 750 and an 800. The ones that they rate at like 600 CFM, there's a little stop on the secondary air door that limits how far the air door can open up. So the bottom part of the Quadrajet is mechanical, but the top plate for the secondaries is vacuum. And it only gives the engine what it needs but on demand. And what they would do, they would limit the air doors so they didn't stand up straight up and down. They would limit them so they'd only maybe open 2/3. I don't know what the exact number was, but anyway, that's how they would limit it down from 750 to say 600 CFM for like a 350 small block Chevy or 305 Chevy or whatever. And so anyhow, but the primary side is really small, as most of you know, on a Quadrajet, and the secondaries are really, really big. And so you're primarily running on like a 250 CFM carburetor until you need more CFM and stand on it and get into the secondaries. But so in that application, a vacuum secondary carburetor with small primaries is an excellent way to go, because when you're cruising, you're primarily in, like I said, on the smaller two barrels in the Quadrajet carburetor, which give you a better fuel economy, as opposed to like if you had a Holley 750 and all four of them are the same size, but they're obviously the front ones are going to have to be bigger so that you can get the same CFM as a Quadrajet with too small and too big. And because of the bigger bore size, you're going to pull more fuel, and the fuel economy is going to suffer a little bit. I got a theory on that too, so I'm not sure that I believe that, but that's the theory. But so anyhow, the other reason that gave me the idea to talk about this tonight is because Eric Weingartner racing. I don't know if some of you guys may watch him. I'm pretty sure that he pops up on your feed because it pops up on mine all the time. And Eric, I've known for a long time. He may not remember me, but we used to be in Engine Master challenges together years ago. I mean, it's been a long, long time ago now. But anyhow, Eric's a pretty sharp guy. And he does a lot of dyno testing. He's a cylinder head guy. He does a lot of cylinder head porting and intake porting. And I watched a video this morning on him with a dual plane intake manifold with a 1050 Dominator carburetor. And for you guys that haven't seen a 1050 Dominator compared to like a 4150,000 CFM carburetor, the throttle plates in a 4150 are about that big around. The Dominators are about that big around. They're 2 inches is what they are. Yep. And the ones in a 350 or 750 CFM carburetor are an inch 750, I think. So a quarter inch smaller in diameter. Maybe even smaller than that. Might be like an inch and 11/16, which would be what is that? 1.8 or 1.680? 1.68.
Yeah, 750.
1.680 or 87 or whatever. Anyhow, so it's still bigger than a quadrajet carburetor. But it was kind of interesting to watch that video, and I shared it with my son. I don't know if he can share it with you guys so you can watch it later or whatever. But he, like myself, thought, there's no way an engine's going to want a Dominator carburetor on a dual plane intake manifold. And it's pretty interesting, the results. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but it was pretty impressive. And indeed, it did work, and it worked very well. So you'll have to watch a video to get all of it. But so yeah, I mean, there's what it comes down to. Like what was the carburetor you ran on your 400 in the truck? You had
well, at the end it was that Holly right there. I think that's 800 CFM.
Oh, okay. So this one here's a Holly 800 CFM spread bore carburetor, mechanical secondaries. Holly made a replacement for the Quadrajet, and I really like that carburetor. It works real well as well. And that's what he had on there. I thought you was running a 750 square bore though. Didn't you have one of those on there?
No, because we traded off Mom's car.
Oh, okay.
I gave you the Quadrajet because you wanted the Quadrajet, and so I said I'll trade you for the Holly.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good carburetor. That thing works really well. But so they to choose a carburetor for your application, you need to know primarily how you're going to use the car or vehicle. Most of the time. If it's going to be for towing and daily cruiser, then you're going to want something like a Quadrajet carburetor. It has small primaries and on demand a larger secondary and vacuum secondaries. If you got something that is going to be like a weekend warrior and you're going to take the local cruise-ins and maybe every once in a while, not that we ever do this, get in a street race.
Right, yeah. Never.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Yeah, that's real bad. Especially whenever the cops are watching.
Yeah.
But anyway, so with something like that, you would probably want a 4150 style, which a 4150 is a pretty common Holly carburetor that everybody's used for years and years and years. And it's basically a square bore, what they call a square bore carburetor, where the primary and secondary throttle plates are the same size. And but on a smaller bolt pattern than like a Dominator carburetor. Dominator carburetor, they're all the same size, but they're big.
Yep.
So we're going to get into that a little bit deeper in a minute here. But anyway, so the for a weekend cruiser and a occasional drag strip run here and there, I would recommend like an 850 to a 950. Now this all depends on your engine combination. So obviously, if you're running a 350 cubic inch engine, with 9-to-1 compression and a 355 rear end gear, we'll say, and a 2500 stall or 2800 stall converter, then you don't want that big carburetor. You know, you could get away with a realistic carburetor size would be a 700 or 750 on a 350. 400, you know, 750 or an 850, 455. They love carburetors, so I always put more carburetor than what a lot of people think that it really needs, but I always run 950s on those. But yeah, and then for drag racing, you know, you're running pretty much wide open throttle the whole time. So the bigger the carburetor, the better, the more horsepower you're making. Of course, if your drag car, it's probably got higher compression, bigger camshaft, better cylinder heads, bigger tube header, blah, 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 blah. So it all comes down to your combo. But there was something I was just talking about, and I refreshed my memory. I said I'd come back to it.
The spread bore and square bore. Well, you said you're going to go back to a lot of things, but that was the last.
That's what I'm counting on. Your brain is fresher and younger than mine. I don't remember all these things I say.
Something about the bigger bore on the Dominator than the spread bore on the Holly 4150.
So one of the things that comes back to me that I was going to talk about is, like, I was talking about the fuel economy with the small primaries and the little bigger for the 4150 style carb. You know, they say that the fuel economy is going to be worse. And my theory is, and I've done this, and it seems like it works, you know, and maybe it doesn't work in every application. I don't know, but it worked in the application I used it on. I had a 455 that I had in an 80 Grand Prix, and I drove it to the track, and it ran 1150s, and I'd drive it home. And when I had the Q-Jet on it, my fuel economy was like roughly 15 mile a gallon, I think is what it was, which wasn't too terribly bad for that fast of a car.
Yep.
And but with the Holly, I put a Holly 1000 CFM carburetor on that, which has a bigger primary throttle plate than the Quadrajet had. And it actually got a little bit better. It wasn't a lot more, but it got like 16 mile to the gallon. And so my thought process is, and maybe you guys follow along with what I'm going to say here, my thought process is that because the throttle bores are bigger, I didn't have to open them as much, which didn't put as much demand on the booster, and it didn't pull as much fuel, and that's why the fuel economy was a little better. So, that's something that I would like to try and test and see where that might lead if you were to over-carburate the thing and the engine just doesn't need it, and it'll actually correct the air-fuel ratio so that it runs better and gets better fuel economy at part throttle.
I honestly didn't notice, but I didn't. By the time that we swapped, I wasn't really driving my truck that much anymore because of other things, but I didn't really notice that much of a difference in my gas mileage from swapping to that carburetor from the Quadrajet that we had.
Yeah.
But that Quadrajet, though, remember, you wanted that one because that was the one that you modified.
Yeah. What did I use that on after I got it back from you? I don't even
You put it
remember.
on Mom's Firebird, and then after that, I don't know what you did with it.
Okay. Yeah, so what I did was I like carburetor stuff. I mean, I started my business as Don's Carburetor, so obviously I'm into carburetors. But the Q-Jet, I really like that carb. The only problem with it is the fuel bowls are so little on them that you can suck them dry almost immediately. So you need a really killer fuel system and a big needle and seat in them, and you got to run the float level at a jagged edge of flooding. But you can get around the small fuel bowl if you know how to do it.
Now, would you be able to combat that with, like, say that you run a mechanical fuel pump just for normal driving, and then for drag racing have an electric fuel pump pushed through the same line, pushed it past the mechanical fuel pump?
You can do that, but it puts a lot of strain on the mechanical pump because it's got to draw through the electric fuel pump. So it's pulling pulling from way back. You put your electric pump in the back of the car, and it's a restriction when it's not running. So you could do that. I've seen guys do it, but man, I think that you're hurting yourself more than you're helping yourself.
Now, you did that with a customer car too before, though, didn't you? Or did you have it on with the mechanical pump?
Well, I think we ran an electric pump with the mechanical pump to enhance it, and which really was overkill. I really didn't have to do that. It might have been hurting it. I don't know.
Gotcha.
That was one of them things that I think I was trying, and I don't remember who that was, but yeah.
I think it was like Chrissy's car or Chrissy
Billings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't remember now either. I just remember seeing that night, and I'm like, how's my dad doing this? Because I remember seeing the fuel pump on the back, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I go up front, I'm like, what? That's going to the mechanical fuel pump.
Well, what you could do is you could put a splitter on by the carburetor, and you could run both fuel lines separately for the mechanical, one for the electric. But I don't know how that would work either. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things you'd have to play with and figure out. Because you wouldn't want that mechanical or electric pump pushing back through the mechanical pump, right? Unless it's got a check valve in it, and then it would hold it, and then it would go to the carburetor, not to the pump.
But then your mechanical pump probably wouldn't pump as much pressure as the electric one.
And it might pump back to the electric one and pump it back to the tank. So that's probably not a good idea either. So, but yeah, there's all kinds of things.
We'll leave that one up to Philip III. He can try that one for us.
Yeah, let him give it a whirl.
He likes to tinker.
Yeah. He likes to share pictures too. I've seen a lot of pictures.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and about 13 more minutes we'll be going over pictures. So we're going to try to do a half hour, see how that works for a while. And
so we don't run over all the time is what you're saying?
But I mean, if we have to run over, we have to run over. But I mean, at least I can try to stick to a certain time for right now, and then we can just grow off of that.
Right. But anyhow, so Dominator carburetor, the reason those things work so well is because even though it's 1,000 CFM or 1,050 with 2-inch throttle bores in them, and you have a 4150 that flows 1,000 CFM as well. I've got one of those at the shop. So it's a 50 CFM difference, but the throttle bores are a whole lot smaller, and the Venturi's a whole lot smaller. That's a good example of why flow bench racing is not a good idea. So you can take 1,000 CFM Dominator and 1,000 CFM 4150, and the Dominator 9 times out of 10, we'll say always, but 9 times out of 10 will make more power. And the reason is because you're reducing the restriction to the engine. And the engine doesn't want to be restricted. It wants to run as much air through it as it can. Now, it may not draw all 1,000 CFM of the carburetor. If you have one of those hats that goes on your dyno for measuring CFM, it's basically a turbine in there is what it does, and it measures airspeed is what it's doing. You might find that 1,000 CFM carburetor is only pulling 860 CFM, and you'll say, well, how come it makes more power if it's only pulling 860 CFM? It's a resistance thing too. You got to think about the whole picture. It's not just the amount of air that it's capable of moving; it's the resistance. A bigger hole has less resistance, so it's going to make more torque and it's going to make more power.
Now, here's the thing that I have a question about. So every single carburetor is flat on the bottom. Is there anything that you can put underneath of it to help the air draw down and then go directly into the ports? Because most intakes are just squares.
Well, you know what a super sucker is because we tested it on Luke's car.
Okay, so you'd have to buy a spacer then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or design the intake that way too. You could do that too. And but yeah, definitely super. That's why they call it a super sucker. It increases the response to the carburetor and pulls a little bit more air. And so makes more power.
Also, whenever I know it happens at like a lightning speed, but when the air is drawn in, that air goes straight down, and then it goes out like this. if you get, a lack of a better term, any turbulence in there, will that affect that carburetor?
Yeah, so I think where you're going with that, and it's a good reason why you want to run a carburetor spacer, is if the carburetor is too close to the plenum floor, all right, the air and fuel don't have enough time to make the turn into the port. And so whenever you raise the carburetor up, it gives that air more of an angle on the port, and it'll make more power. And the other part of that is the fuel's coming out of the carburetor and booster so hard, it's bouncing off of the floor of the chamber, the plenum, and that's causing all kinds of grief in there. So there's a reason that you want to run a carburetor spacer. So yeah, good point.
And second part of my question with that is, if you run a spacer, does that increase the CFM of that carburetor?
Well, that all depends on the engine, and you won't really know that till you dyno test. And kind of like that Eric Weingartner thing, he didn't think a Dominator would work on a dual plane intake, and it did. So you'd have to test it to see, because not every engine likes it, And I think he even talks about that in his video, because he tried it on a Ford, he tried a Chevy, and every engine's different because of the port arrangement. Fords are kind of like, my Ram Air 5's got two in the center, but Fords are kind of like evenly spaced intake ports, and Chevys are side by side, Siamese like a Pontiac, and obviously that's going to have a different effect on the plenum of the intake manifold.
Right.
And so you just have to test it, and you don't know until you do.
Well, I guess what I'm asking though is, like, can you say that you need you did some testing, you go, I need a bigger carb. Can I just throw a 1-inch spacer underneath there and gain more CFM, or does it not work that way?
No, it wouldn't work that way.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to put a bigger carburetor on it. And so, was you there when we had the 406 in Uncle Paul's car before I sold the engine out of that to that guy? We did the chassis dyno, and we tried it had dual quads on it. Two Edelbrock, I think 750s, on an Offenhauser dual quad intake manifold, low rise. And then we had a Performer RPM, and I put a Victor on it, and we tried the Performer RPM with a 850 and a 950, and we did the 850 and 950 on the Edelbrock intake, the Victor intake. And the dual quads look cool, but it made the worst power out of all of them. And believe it or not, the Victor made the most horsepower and torque. It made considerable more torque than what you would think compared to the RPM dual plane intake manifold. So the RPM, the Edelbrock RPM Performer is a dual plane. The Edelbrock Victor Junior is a single plane. Yep. And it made more torque on a 406 with a single plane intake and a 950 CFM carburetor. And that's what we ended up leaving on that car.
Yeah. I think I vaguely remember that. That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. Probably 2-3 years ago now.
I think more than that.
No, I think it was only a couple, 2-3 years. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
But, well, John Monin has a good question. Mm-hmm. And I've seen you do this before, and I actually asked, and you told me about the certain carburetor maker that does this, and that is, have you ever tried way oversizing the carb intake port on the carb to slightly increase the bowl size?
Run that again.
Have you ever tried way oversizing the carb intake port on the carb to slightly increase the bowl size? So I'm assuming he's meaning the actual runners inside the carburetor, the ventries. And
well, that wouldn't make the fuel bowl bigger. That's why I'm a little confused on that. The if we're referring to the Quadrajet, which has a limited bowl size, one thing that I'll do is, if I use a Quadrajet carburetor, I use the long filter housing on those, which gives you a little bit more fuel capacity there. Even though it's on the wrong side of the needle and seat, it's still, it'll give you a little bit more capacity. And you have to run 130 thousandths ID hole in the needle and seat, or you're not going to supply enough fuel to that carburetor if you're making anything over 400 horsepower. And so you have to make sure you got a big enough needle and seat, use the long filter housing, take the paper filter out because it's a restrictor, and use a filter in line, a bigger cartridge style filter. And then you raise the float level. Typically, we have them tilted down for everyday cruisers about 2 to 3 degrees. Whenever you're doing trying to get maximum performance, you make it level. And the only bad thing about doing that with a quadrajet carburetor is that if you park that thing in a parking lot and say it's got a slight grade to it, or up or down or sideways, and it doesn't really matter what angle it changes it, there's going to be fuel dripping out of the venturis because the float level's so high. And then when you go get back in that car, whenever you're ready to leave, or you're done for the night or whatever, it's going to crank a minute or two because it's going to be flooded. Yep. So
that's when you hold it down to the floor, and when you start it up, it goes whoa, and everyone looks.
Yeah, and blows smoke and everything, and then they think, "Oh, what's that clown doing?"
Yep.
But yeah, whenever the carburetor's flooded, the best thing you can do is hold the carburetor about half open. Don't pump it. Hold the carburetor open. A lot of guys, I hear them in there pumping, and they're flooding it more. They're putting more fuel in it. Hold it open, and it'll clear itself out. It'll take it a minute, but it'll kick over, and it'll start again.
Yes, and he meant the larger fuel housing.
Yeah.
BNR Racing asks, what do you like, Don? Quadrajet Holly 4150 with, is it annular boosters or annular?
Annular.
Annular boosters, dogleg boosters, or aerosol boosters?
Well, the aerosols are interesting, and I don't know if you guys know what Brian's talking about there. An aerosol carburetor from CNS is one of the companies that make those, and Pro Systems might have one too. But basically, an aerosol carburetor doesn't have a booster in it. It has a brass tube with holes drilled in the bottom of it, and supposedly it acts like an aerosol, like a spray can. It's supposed to atomize the fuel better, and they work good. I've used them before. Some of them don't have holes in them. Some of them are cut at an angle, so it's like when you blow across the top of a pop bottle or whatever, it causes a suction effect. But yeah, that's an aerosol carburetor. It doesn't look like a standard carburetor. Annular booster, what those are, is basically a bigger round diameter booster with like a shower head effect. It's got a whole bunch of little holes in it, and which is supposed to atomize fuel better. It's more sensitive to pressure differential whenever you open the throttle and things like that. So, and I do like annular boosters. And then a down leg booster is basically a booster that comes down, drops down like that, and it's a round cone with a single hole coming out of that tube that comes down to it. And so it's got a pretty good sized hole in it, and it doesn't atomize the fuel quite as good as like a, you need to get up. I'm blocking you in there. But anyhow, it doesn't atomize the fuel quite as well as a annular discharge booster does. And so, and again, it all depends on application. I like the annular boosters, but if you have a really good cylinder head, they seem like they draw too much fuel and they run really rich at low RPM, where an annular or where a dogleg booster doesn't run as rich. So just depends on the application. But I like all of them actually, and we use all of them. As a matter of fact, we just finished up 461, and I don't know if Ben Stefanski's on tonight, but we fired your engine, and it's got we put a 950 Holly on it, and it's got a down leg booster in the thing.
Yeah, I do believe he is on. If I remember seeing his name at the beginning, Ben Stefanski.
Yep, that's Ben. So yep, we fired your engine today, Ben. Sounds awesome. So, but so yeah, it just depends on the application, and the other thing is too, carburetor spacers have a big effect on different boosters and carburetors. Like Ben's engine, I think we're going to have to put a carb spacer underneath that carburetor. I don't like quite the way that it's acting, And when it gets up around about 3,000 RPM, the fuel, it's pulling really, really hard on the booster. And I want to try to change that signal to the carburetor a little bit, see if we can get it to clear up a little. Because it makes it run kind of rough and a little bit rich at that RPM, and we can work around that. I just got to figure out what it likes.
Mark Timmer says, talking about street racing down here in Mansfield, they put out removable speed bumps starting on Friday to Sunday on the main cruise road. About every 300 feet, got to find a new road.
So they put them out or they take them away?
They must put them out on the weekends. And then
I keep everybody from street racing.
Yep.
I got it. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I don't know how many people have local airports, little airports, municipal airports around their place, but I really think that they should allow the guys to come in there and, it'd be a little tough if they're a pretty busy airport, but we used to have a drag strip, Meander, that was an airport, and every once in a while you'd have to stop racing, let the airplane land, and then you go back to racing again.
Well, I think now, like Akron Fulton, like they use that for emergency landings and stuff. So, like they used to drag race on that side road.
Yeah, right next to Soapbox Derby.
Yeah.
It was curved too. That took balls to drag race on that road.
Oh yeah. Walt Bainey says folks should check out a CNS blow-through carb sometime if they want to see a unique Holley carb.
Yeah, those CNS carburetors are pretty cool. They're an aerosol carburetor, and they work really, really well. They actually do. And, any carburetors are getting so damn expensive now. Man, when I first started, Don's carburetor, low prices. Remember that? I put my ad in. Well, you were a baby. You don't remember.
I never seen any of your corny ads.
Yeah, I put a little bitty ad that big in the Akron Beacon Journal. Low prices.
I remember you would advertise in one of the Pontiac paper magazines or flyers or whatever too.
Well, we had an ad in several of the high-performance Pontiac magazines when they had classifieds in the back.
Yeah.
And then I started putting full-page ads in there too, but then my phone was ringing off the hook too much, and I couldn't keep up with them, all the phone calls, and I wasn't getting that much more work from it, so I quit doing it. But yeah, that CNS carburetors are really cool carbs.
What are the what would you consider to be a top brand carburetor nowadays?
Well, I really like the quick fuel carburetor, but something's going on with them right now. I don't know if Holley bought them back or what happened, but the prices radically went up. And the last quick fuel carburetor I got, I wasn't real impressed with. So it kind of looked like a Holley carburetor. And I'm not real impressed with Holley carburetors either, but they're less expensive. A 950 CFM, we'll call it a classic Holley, you can pick up for, like right around $900, and a quick fuel carburetor for the same type of carburetor is like $1,200-1,300. It's like $300-400 more.
Wow.
So carbs, they've jumped radically. I mean, we were buying 850 annular discharge quick fuel carburetors probably 10 years ago, and I know it's 10 years ago, but still, it wasn't that long ago, and the price shouldn't have jumped this much. But we were buying them for like $650 to $700.
Yeah. Beating Our Racing said he had his 455 crankshafts turned down 1/8, all 6 counterweights, and lost about 0.6 pounds total weight. Both crankshafts weigh 71 pounds now.
Yeah, and that definitely helps with the engine to help it rev faster.
And I'm just going through making sure that there's no more.
Tell you what,
Randy French asked about an ATM carburetor.
ATM. Never heard of an ATM. I've heard of APD, and I've heard of
Is there an AFM?
no. APD, AEM. I think there's an AEM. The other thing is too, guys, carburetors. You know, whenever you get into a performance engine, don't buy those cheap Holly or APD or Proform or any of the carburetors that are street carburetors with chokes on them. Those things they just don't work. And they might be fine for a 350 stock small block Chevy, but they do not work on performance engines. And you will be disappointed, and you're going to go out and buy a good carburetor anyway. So don't waste your money on that cheap carburetor. Another one you don't want to buy, there's a need for it, and I can make them work good, but it takes a lot of effort, is the Edelbrock, the old AFB style carburetors. They're cheap, but there's a reason the carburetors are cheap. They're not a high-tech, high-quality type piece, and they can be made to work, but you're going to spend all your money having somebody make it work. You know, where if you buy the right carburetor, like a good, Proform are good carburetors, APD carbs are good. All these are good carburetors, but you got to buy their performance version. Don't buy the street version. Their street versions, all they're doing is that's an entry-level carburetor for an amateur that doesn't know what he's doing, and he can buy it, put it on, it's cheap, and he gets down the road. He don't know the difference between 50 or 75 horsepower from the carburetor not being right.
And BNR Racing said, Don, real quick question. To obtain 15,000 point, I'm assuming that, 0.0015.
That's 1.5 thou.
Okay.
15 would be 0.015.
Oh, okay.
00 is at 1.5 thou.
0015 to 0.002, running main and rod oil clearances. Do you have to grind oversized from Clevite specs?
I don't like running bearing clearance that tight. For the stuff that we build, we typically run 2.5 to 3 on the rods and 3 to 3.5 on the mains. And the reason I do that, and you can do that if you're aware of it and you know you're doing it. The reason I don't do that is because when I sell an engine to a customer, build an engine for a customer, I know they're not going to warm it up. So the first thing they're going to do, they're going to jump in that thing and they're going to jazz the throttle and they're going to end up spinning a bearing because the bearing clearances are too tight and the oil's not warmed up. So we run a little more clearance, and it doesn't hurt a thing. It might make the idle oil pressure go down just a little bit, but we're talking it might go from 20 to 15 psi at idle. So what? It's still floating the bearings at idle. You're good. But to answer your question, if I was going to run the bearing clearance that tight, what I would do is I would definitely chamfer all the oil holes on the crankshaft, so it's got a nice, umbrella or whatever you want to call it to come out around the bearing so that it has an immediate barrier so it doesn't contact the bearing. The other thing I would do too is I would open up the oil holes in the main bearings in the block to supply more oil to the crankshaft. But yeah, again, I don't like running bearing clearance that tight. That's every time I do, it ends up biting me in the butt, and I end up getting it back. So I just don't do it anymore.
And he said he also set up a new 0.010 and standard main and rod bearings torqued down to spec, carefully measured with dial bore gauge that reads down to 1/10,000th of a 10,000th of an inch accuracy.
Yeah. So what we found on a lot of bearings now, I don't know what bearing you're running, but if it's a Clevite, I won't run Clevite bearings anymore. And a lot of guys are getting away from Clevite bearings. If you take your bore gauge and you run it across that, say your connecting rod standing straight up and down like this, and you put your bore gauge in and you run it from one side of the bearing to the other side, watch what that gauge does. It'll freak you out. Some of them are tapered almost 1.5 thou. And I think that's one of the reasons why that, when you run too tight a bearing clearance, you have a problem, because depending on where you check it on that bearing, over here you might have 1.5, 2,000s. Over here you might only have a half a thou because of the taper in the bearings. They're bad. Speed Pro, every one of the bearings we've had trouble with through the last probably 5 or 6 years, and the reason is because of the manufacturers. They suck. I mean, I don't know if they're watching, any are watching tonight, but they suck, and they need to do a better quality control. The bearings that we like to run are King bearings. Those seem to be the most consistent. And ACLs, which has a Clevite part number on the shell, but ACL must do their own quality control because ACL bearings are way better than Clevite bearings. And ACL, I think, was bought out by Clevite. Well, it used to be Michigan 77, and it turned into Clevite, and I think ACL somehow got bought up by that company, but they must have a different quality control.
And then Cherry Bandit said, once I ran a Dominator intake with a adapter for a square bore carb. We were discussing the reverse. What are your thoughts on issues adapting a Dominator and adapter to a square bore manifold?
Well, if you use the Moroso one, which is roughly about 2 inches, it actually creates a Venturi effect underneath the carburetor, and I like it. It makes really good torque. And if you blend it just right, it works really, really well on a single plane. Now, I never tried it on dual plane. I don't know.
And Philip III says, but the look cool, Don. And then Philip's wife is busting his balls, says he can't even spell they correctly.
Spell what correctly?
They.
They.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be, but they look cool, Don.
Oh.
But he put the.
I got you. They. I thought you said bay, B-A-Y.
And then Walt Bainey says, hey, B, is that my poncho sign behind you guys tonight? No, that yours is actually hanging up and it's taped off and it's ready for me to paint. That and your Bigfoot signs around here ready to be painted as well. So,
well, they were sitting there last week, so they're gone now. So you must have somewhere.
They're hanging up. One's hanging up over there, and then Jamie hung up the other one after she washed it for me. But
what?
Yep,
She put it in the washer.
Yeah, the sink.
Okay, the dishwasher.
Yep. And then I still got to cut out the. I can't find Bigfoot. And then I got to cut out the other Bigfoot for you still.
Yeah, I've never seen a Bigfoot in Ohio. It's supposed to be one of the biggest spots for Bigfoots.
Yeah, they use it for their. They have sex here and they travel through here.
You know what? I got right there by the shop. There's a trailer park over there. I got that Bigfoot hunter that was on TV. He lives in that trailer park.
Well,
did you know that?
Nope.
Yeah, he's been to my shop a couple times.
Looking for Bigfoot?
No.
Oh.
He just told me about it.
Oh.
But he's the guy I think puts the donuts out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, Bigfoots I heard do like donuts.
That's what I heard. Donuts and apples.
I
think it's the guys out in the woods. They need a snack. They just use Bigfoot for an excuse.
Yep.
I thought Bigfoot liked beer. That's what I'd leave out for him.
He likes beef jerky too.
Yeah, a little beer and a little beef jerky, and maybe a shot of Jameson now and again. So,
yep.
If you guys are out in the woods and you want to find a Bigfoot, go ahead and leave that out there for me. Let me know when you do.
John Mine says, I'm from Ohio and I have a size 17 shoe. Those hunters scare me.
Holy moly.
Oh, yep, there it is.
Oop, there he is.
You can't see it. There it is.
He's all washed.
Yep.
He's naked too.
Yep. And then Philip III says, I like donuts and I have big feet.
Well, I got little feet and I like Jameson.
I got big feet. I like Jameson and donuts.
We don't have any whiskey out here tonight. What's going on?
I got some whiskey in the house. It's in the fridge.
Rum drunk on a Wednesday.
It's just Jack Daniel's whiskey, though.
Yeah.
I was going to buy some Jameson, but they didn't have... they had just regular, and I wanted to do the I wanted to try that. What is it? The Black Smooth or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? I really like that. What's that one? The stout we get, the Jameson. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, they didn't have that there.
Jameson orange is good too.
That is too. You're right. There ain't a Jameson I don't like actually.
I don't know. I think
was-
the stout's probably my favorite, and orange and then regular.
Yep.
Orange is pretty good too.
You guys better stock up on your Buffalo Trace though if you're whiskey drinkers, because after all the problems they've been having down there, it's going in about 10 years they're not going to have any aged whiskey.
They don't have any on the shelf here at our store.
Everybody's buying it up.
Let's see here. B&R Racing said he has lots of vintage Vandervelde bearings,
Vandervelde bearings, yep.
and he has Clevite 2 stocked up 400 and 455 from over 20 years.
That's Then now those bearings were good. We used to actually 20-year-old Clevites probably are about the time they were starting to have trouble, but the Vanderbilt, those are good bearings.
And then he wants to know about the high-end billet racing carburetors. Are they worth the extra money?
Well, again, that's one of them race carburetors, and yeah, I think they are. They're way more adjustable. When you get into a higher-end carburetor, it gives you a lot more adjustability. They got adjustable air bleeds in them. They got four-corner idling screws on them. The booster design's a lot better. The metering blocks are billet instead of being a casting, and they're a lot better. The fit, all the surfaces are flatter and cleaner and a better seal. So definitely a billet carburetor. And honestly, a lot of the big end carburetors are starting to do that now. And it's probably why the things are, $1,200-$1,300 now, because they, everything is billet. They're not casting it. They're actually machining it out of a block. But yeah, definitely I think they're worth it. If you're going to really buy a high-end carburetor, you need a BLP or an APD or somebody like that, a good high-end or a Browswell. There's a lot of good carburetor companies out there now. I mean, there's a lot of good carburetor companies, and they're all high-end. And when you get into the high-end stuff, you're talking $2,000, $2,500 for a carburetor on some of those.
Eric Chambers says drunk Bigfoot is not fun.
Why, did you run into him? Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't want him drunk. He would, especially if he's a rowdy drunk. If he's happy drunk, even then it might be bad. He might squeeze you to death.
That's right.
Just loving you.
And then B&R Racing says, I want a custom E85 4150. He talked to BLP Bow Laws, maybe Bro Laws in Florida.
Laws, yeah,
Bow Laws in Florida.
Them are good carbs. Yep. There's so many of them, I can't keep up with them all anymore. But I those names I do know. I forgot about Bow Laws. There's another guy down in Tennessee too that has got some really killer stuff.
John Monin says, I saw that big feet are peeping toms. They really scare me. And Philip III said he has a picture of Bigfoot. He's going to send it to us.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I'm afraid. Is he driving a, what's that thing that you get, PT Cruiser? Yeah.
And then B&R Racing said, I have a gasoline BLP Bow Laws 1085 CFM 4150. He really likes. It cost $1,100 back in 2011.
Yeah, 2011. That was 14 years ago. So yeah, the good carburetors are expensive. There's another one too, Da Vinci carburetors. Those are good carburetors too, but they're the name is fitting. They're like buying a Da Vinci.
Are AEDs still decent?
Yeah, AEDs are good carburetors. Yep, AED, APD. There's a lot of good carbs, and what you have to do is you got to find a carb company or manufacturer that offers good customer service, because if you're trying to find horsepower that's the only reason you're going to buy a carburetor like that is because you're trying to max your combo out. You need somebody that's knowledgeable enough to get you through all the tuning part of it. because it's not going to typically work right out of the box. You're going to have to tweak it. And sometimes you need to change air bleeds. Sometimes you got to change the annular bleeds. There's a whole, they're pretty adjustable carbs.
All right, everybody, 10 more minutes, and we are going to switch to the emails.
Well, we can do that now. You don't have to wait 10 minutes.
No, I'm saying that's what we're doing right now.
Oh, so we got 10 minutes left is what you're saying.
Yes.
I got you. Okay. I'll say we don't have to do it in 10 minutes. We can do it right now. Ooh, that's
so
cool.
So this is old school twist.
I like it.
And before I start showing everything, let me... this is Brothers GTO in process and Corvette I painted years ago. So here's the Corvette.
Okay. Looks like I got a supercharger or he's got a tunnel ram on or something. Got a scooped hood and
it's got the bug catcher on it.
Yeah, sticking through the hood.
Yep. So, and then here's the Bros GTO in progress. So this must be the GTO he works on while he's listening to us, I think.
Oh, okay. There you go. Nice billet pulley system on there.
Yep.
Yep.
Nice. And looks like he poured 15 or maybe just painted the frame, maybe. It looks pretty clean.
Definitely restored the frame for sure. For sure.
And that's it for those. Go back here. All right, Ken Wilson's up next. He said I ended the show too early. So apparently when we went over a half hour, that was still too early.
Oh. Okay.
The 69 Custom S wanted to discuss best order for tuning carb and timing. Has a 69XF code, 42848 heads.
Cool.
HS roller, rockers, and a DCI harmonic balancer. I think you guys built this engine back in 1999.
Huh. Oh, is that Denny Jabe's old car? That if it is, I remember that car quite well. And Denny was a good customer of mine, really good guy. I think he's gone now. We lost him, but he's a really good dude. And that's a really nice car.
Yes,
Denny Jabe was a perfectionist.
All right, Philip III's up next. Only in Alabama, he says. Only in Alabama could the 24th of June car show be on June 26th. Let's see what he sent us. The 28th annual.
Got a
24th,
Fast and Furious GTO. Well, it was a Le Mans. They made it look like a GTO, but
the 24th of June car show is actually going to be June 26th.
perfect. Maybe it's the 24th through the 26th.
Yeah, maybe.
You know that sometimes that happens. But yeah, or you warm up. Maybe that's the day you start looking for Bigfoots and Jameson.
And then here's a Pontiac 350 and mock-up that he built in the late 90s.
This is Phil.
Yep, Philip III. Black engine.
Yeah, it looks like you got dual quads on that one.
Yep. And then Philip III, Pontiac 350 still.
Whenever I was manager of the car wash in Akron there was a guy that lived behind me, had a 67 Firebird with a Pontiac 350 that he built, and it was pretty nasty. Back in the day, we didn't know what we didn't know because this is back in the 70s, but I would say it was probably realistically a 13-second car, but everybody lied back then and said their cars ran 12s. And he beat a lot of those 12-second supposed cars.
And then Pontiac J2000. He was going to put a Pontiac 350 in it, but never got the project done before he had to sell it.
Yeah, that's a little bitty car.
That would have been a fun little car to put a 350 in.
What was that guy's name that did the superchargers and turbos on that J2000? It was in all the hot rod magazines back in the day, and I think it had a hydraulic front clip that lifted up on it. Or maybe the body lifted. I don't remember now. And it was kind of like a psychedelic paint job, like an orange and blue, pastel blue, and I think silver and, I don't know, green maybe. I don't remember. Anyhow,
I don't know.
it was a J2000, but it didn't have a Pontiac engine in it. It had some kind of a Chevy engine in it.
Philip III said he sold this one before he was able to finish it as well, but he does have another 350 that he will finish after he rebuilds the Pontiac 3800, maybe.
Holy moly, this guy got a lot of projects.
Yeah, there you go. He's got the mailbox on it.
Yeah.
Or the newspaper box, actually.
That's real old school, but that's a Chevy engine.
Yeah.
That ain't no Pontiac engine. You can't fool me, Philip.
And then Philip III, he makes smoker grills out of scrap metal and lawnmower parts.
There you go.
Perfect. I don't see the Briggs and Stratton. I see a car exhaust right there. It's still got the flange on it, looks like.
I don't know. That might be a fill neck for a... I don't know.
That could be a fill neck, too, yeah.
But yeah.
I don't see no Briggs and Stratton stickers on it, though.
No, but I see some wheels on that thing. Look like it might come off a lawnmower. Looks like he's got one of them Freon tanks on there, too.
Yep. Let's see here. Oh, and here's his carport. He just put it up, read the instructions carefully.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? The last time he read the instructions carefully,
you know what
happened.
Upside down.
Yeah.
And then Philip III says, horsepower killer. Next time, let's talk about things that just kill horsepower.
Oh, boy.
Oh, I'm downloading it, MP4.
There are multiple things.
Let's see what he...
This is Florida humidity, Don. These are
looks like
insulated
rain.
windows.
Florida humidity.
Yeah,
I've
that'll
got
kill your horsepower.
condensation
There ain't no doubt
all
about
over
that.
'em.
A lot
It's
of
like
water
95%
particulate
humidity
there.
with
That
95
just
degrees.
destroys horsepower.
You
That could be as much as
can't
3 or
make
4
a car
tenths
run
an
in this
ET.
kind of stuff.
95% humidity and 95 degrees temperature.
Oh, yeah. And you don't even want to be outside in that. Even if you're naked, you're sweating.
And then this is shameless self-promotion, he says.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy, it's another MP4. We're a glutton for punishment.
And you keep putting your headphones on. Is there music?
Yeah, well,
Or
it's
he
there's
talking?
sound. You can hear
I
it.
said jiggle the wires.
Oh.
Yes, you did. I love Phil.
That's an old
He's
one.
watching from his
Because I don't even...
page
we have more pictures
and
on the
his
wall
watch
now.
page.
Yep.
I love it. And you know what?
Yeah,
He
that was
diagnosed the
quite-
problem
that was
from
quite a while
Florida.
ago.
Yeah,
That
I mean,
was-
he's like got a crystal ball. That's what all my customers want from me. I don't know why
Must have
you
been
don't put him on
wintertime,
the
too.
payroll.
I got my
I'm
flannel on.
telling
You got your
know what?
sweatshirt
He
on.
keeps
Yep.
it up. Get his ass up here. Yeah, but you know what? He just sold his place down in Florida, and he's only renting down
it
there.
just when he
I don't
just
think
sold
wants
his
to go
house.
Oh, okay.
So there's that.
And when he moved next door.
And Philip III, oh boy, just an LOL on this one. Oh boy.
There you go.
Yep.
There's your... if I only had a brain.
Yep, I'd put that on just for Phil.
Yeah.
All right, now Walt Bainey for Philip III PT Cruiser comment.
Oh, look at that. Now, you know what?
Yeah,
I
uh-huh.
do believe that's Walt Bainey's son's car. So Walt's right in there with the Philip III. He's got a PT Cruiser with flames.
This car is lightning, he says.
As a matter of fact, that's Walt's son right there
Yep.
washing it.
Yep. And then we got Tim Korsiak sending the green top GTO of his.
Yeah, that's a beautiful car.
Yes, it is.
That's just like the one I had that I sold that customer of mine, and he painted it red, put a black top on it.
And then the DCI 464 almost done.
Awesome. I can't wait to see how that one runs.
And he's even got the
Heat
factory
shield.
exhaust manifolds
Yeah, heat shields.
and the heat
everything,
shield.
man.
Yeah.
It's
See
gonna
if-
look like a stocker.
Yeah, I was going to say, is he factory restoring it?
It looks like it. Got
And
a
then-
quadrant jet on it.
Here's Philip III with his Bigfoot.
Uh,
Oh, there it is. Are you sure that's not you, Philip III?
you know what? I don't see any donuts, and I don't see no apples, so I don't believe it.
Well, Philip III does have a bushy beard.
Yeah, but you know what? That guy don't have no
bushy hair.
eyeballs.
Oh, he has one right here.
Oh.
Yeah. The other one's covered up by the leaf.
Oh. Yeah, maybe it is.
So that's it for emails. It says I'm missing one.
It looks like our camera died again, huh?
Yep. Yes, we do. We're not there yet, though. Just push button down. So thank you for everyone that did send in pictures and videos.
Whoa.
Please send more.
I got to get longer legs or we got to get shorter chairs. Because I'm not. I'm sitting here literally with my feet dangling in here.
Let's see here. Trying to catch up with all the comments now. Customer service is important. John Mona says, buy some Pontiacs, people.
Amen, brother. Because we're going to have cylinder heads here soon, I hope, and I need to sell those things.
And then, Old School Twist says, the frame is powder coated. Okay, very nice. And it's tunnel ram on the Vet.
Ah, cool.
And then Mike Polson said, did Mondello ever make heads for Pontiac engines?
No, I don't know if Mondello even made any cylinder heads for even Oldsmobiles. I think they sold batten heads through Mondello, so I don't think that they ever made a head. They bought them from Batten, who made an Oldsmobile head, which Joe Mondello talked him into doing, but I don't think it was a big seller for him.
And then Ron Merkel, he says he might have a 69 Custom S he might sell.
Okay.
And then...
those cars are coming up in value, too, because the GTOs are just out of this world now.
Yeah. Philip III said that Walt's son's car was his inspiration.
You know what, Phil? I'm afraid to introduce you to.
Oh boy, that'd be bad.
That would probably be really bad. Matter of fact, that might be a drunk weekend.
And that was an exhaust pipe sticking out the top.
Yeah. Okay. You nailed it.
Let's see. Lario wants to know: has anyone tried the new Edelbrock carb?
No, I want to try one of those. I think Brian from B&R said that he was going to get one. I don't know if he ever did or not, but I want to try one of those.
And then John Munn says, I'm leaving for home 2 hours late. Thanks.
Oh, boy. Wife will be after you, not me.
And the email is dcimotorsports@yahoo.com. Oh, I'm sorry, DCI Motorsports Unleashed. I'm so used to saying just DCI Motorsports. DCI Motorsports Unleashed @yahoo.com. And it's also I put a link in the description of this live.
Yeah, we got so many emails, I can't even keep up anymore. I got Gmails and SBC Globals, and I got Yahoos, and there's all kinds of emails.
And then Eric Chambers wants to know any word on the new block.
That's going to be a little way down the road because I got to get the cylinder heads done first and my new intake we're doing for the cylinder heads. So we're still working on those projects. It's like I'm in the same boat that everybody is whenever they take their engine to what they call machine shop jail. Well, I'm stuck in CNC jail. So until we get something, these guys. I don't want to throw them under the bus, but I'm waiting on them. So,
and Walt Bainey says a free PT. He had to do a couple $1,000s in parts so far, and his son has learned all the garage words during the efforts.
Well, your mom says I got a 9-syllable cuss word.
Oh, I know. I've heard it a couple of times.
Whenever you're working on something and it doesn't go right, and especially in Ohio with all the rust we deal with,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that word probably comes out more than it should.
And then whenever you really get mad, you start biting your lip and you mumble to yourself.
Yeah, it's better than bench pressing S10s.
No, yeah, that's true, because that hurts if they fall on you.
Yeah.
I know I wasn't sticking around to find out.
Yeah, my son, but the transmission wouldn't go in this S10, and I got pissed off, and I grabbed the transmission off the jack, shoved it up in the truck, and when I did, he says it came off the jack stands. I didn't see it.
If it didn't, it was damn close.
I know you scooted out from under the truck, and I needed you.
I couldn't roll fast enough.
I needed you to put the bolt in there, and you left.
I could not get out of there fast enough. And Philip the Third wants to know, why isn't there an F mail? They have email and Gmail. Why do they skip the F?
Yeah, right. What is up with that?
Yep. Well, it is 7:06.
Yep. So tonight we were supposed to have the pages on tonight, but they had something come up, so we didn't get to have their company this evening. But we will hopefully next week. We'll see how things go for them. But this week they had something come up they had to take care of and wasn't able to make it tonight. But good guys, we definitely want to get them on the show and let them share all the things that are going on with the Raven right now.
Yep.
So hopefully we get them next week.
Absolutely.
But all right, so I think did we get everything covered tonight?
That's everything covered, I do believe.
So nobody's got any more questions?
Nope.
Good deal.
So,
all right, so if anybody sees a Bigfoot in Ohio, make sure to let me know.
Yep, take pictures and video.
And put it on our website.
Yeah, amen.
Or our email. We want to see it.
Yep.
I got to have proof.
You got to have proof.
All right, guys. Well, looks like we're at the end of the evening. We're going to split. Thank you for coming.
Yep.
And we will see you guys next week.
All right, everybody stay safe.